Tap the screen and share the live, y'all. Hey, Ashcole, how are you? I'm glad you're here. Hey, Hope. Rammer Jammer Ding Dong, get up here. Portia, my friend, hello. Hey, hello. Hey, Sherry. Tap the screen and share the live, y'all.
Sorry, I was tapping and sharing.
How'd the card game go last night, Mr. Krabs? I lost you.
Hey, Genitalia. Hey, New Mexico Nana. Hey, Harley Girl. Y'all tap and share, please. We're just gonna wait for the room to fill up and then we'll get started, y'all.
I'm just up here trying to increase your analytics by talking to everyone in the chat, even if you're a mod.
Hey, Sunshine. How are you? Hello, Amanda. Hello, Sassy. Little Sasquatch. Hey, Barb. Cassie,
Hey, love.
hello. Hey, Lisa. Hello, Christina. Hey, Deb. Y'all tap and share, please. Hey, Sunflower. Hey, Hope and Healing. Hey, Cindy. Melody Rose, welcome in. Hello, Jennifer. Hey, Bugs. Hey, Rhodey. Y'all keep tapping and sharing, please. Get as many people in here as you can. Hey, Cleavage. Not the Hulkster, Brody. Too bad, Amanda. Keep pushing. I know, Cindy. Way too quick. Not happy about that. Alright, y'all mods, you know the drill. Don't block nobody. Mute if they get out of hand. I don't think you'll have much to worry about. Usually people are very respectful. And I know a lot's went on today, and we're not going to bring it up in this live. So let's just focus on the domestic violence, and that's it today. Alright, y'all want to open up?
So thank you guys for being here tonight. There are two ladies on the panel tonight that are new faces to the panel tonight. You may have seen Manda around. She helps us bring awareness to scammers, beggars, and those who are exhibiting bad behavior on the app. So she's a really good resource for us. But she has a passion that she's been talking about for a very long time, ever since I met her. And it is a pleasure to be able to work with somebody like that who has a passion for something so meaningful. And she introduced us to Sass, and Sass is going to introduce herself, and she's going to be the keynote speaker tonight on a subject that most people do not feel comfortable speaking about. So tonight you're going to have to tap the screen more aggressively than you would any other live. Any topics that you feel that Sass may touch on that is triggering to you, please take yourself into consideration with everything that is said. There is always a resource, and let people in the chat and the people on the panel be your resources, but know that there is a 24-hour-a-day resource in 988. And if you feel like you need to speak to someone and it needs to be a professional, please contact that resource in 988. There's going to be continuous notes in the live moderators if periodically you would remind them to tap the screen, but also that this is a sensitive subject and trigger warning is in effect throughout the entire live. With that being said, I want to introduce you to Sass and to Amanda. Thank you both for being here. We're here to listen and learn from you, and if you'll go ahead and take it away.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, thank you.
This is a hard one to start. I'll start with telling you guys a little bit about myself. That way, because I mean, most people on this side don't really know who I am. So I am a human trafficking survivor, childhood human trafficking survivor, and with that, I got myself stuck in domestic violence situations as I grew older, and I was stuck in like the foster care system. If anybody knows anything about that, it's just set up for failure when you're older, right? And I went through a lot of therapy, and I still go to therapy. So, right, I'm not like an expert. I didn't go to school for this kind of stuff. But with my experience and my co-founder's experience and the things that we learned through our jobs and where we worked, we created an organization called Hope into Healing, and it's for survivors of human trafficking, domestic violence, and sexual assault. And that is how we kind of decided to give back to everyone else. And we tried to make this a little bit different than other organizations, if that makes sense, with the way we educate and the way we explain how this happens and why people don't leave and all the things you're going to learn about tonight. Did you want to tell any part of your story before we went in, or do you want to do that in like the middle or the end?
We can do that at the end. Let's just do a little of the education first.
My favorite saying ever is domestic violence is a system of control, not just anger issues. Because a lot of people think that, they're just really angry people and that's it. And it's really, most of it is a controlling and manipulative side of like everything. So there's a lot of versions of domestic violence. The most common one that everyone talks about is physical abuse. We've got SA, we've got emotional abuse, verbal abuse, financial abuse, digital abuse, stalking, reproductive coercion. I don't know if anybody knows about that. Spiritual or cultural abuse, and parental manipulation. Parental manipulation, that's not really considered like a type of domestic violence as a whole. Like when you're talking about it, I think they would just consider it manipulation, but I think that it should be considered its own like subcategory just because of everything. And I'm going to go into detail about it. So with the physical abuse, it's not just, okay, you hit somebody or somebody hit you, right? It's also pushing, choking, restraining. Even a lot of people don't see that. Just like somebody being like pinned against a wall for a brief few seconds, even, that's still physical abuse. Blocking the exit that you're trying to walk out of, like physically blocking it, still physical abuse. Throwing things, driving dangerously to scare someone, or any use of physical force meant to intimidate or harm someone else. And that's what we consider as physical abuse. SA, I'm going to be brief about it just because it's been known to ban people. But on this app, it's any sexual contact without consent. And we'll just leave it at that. Like we can go with any contact without consent. The emotional or psychological abuse is when they throw insults at you. Even ones like that, a lot of times they'll throw an insult and then they'll laugh about it, try to make it into a joke. And if you are feeling some type of way about it and they know that it hurt your feelings or that you didn't like it and they're laughing about it, that's still emotional, psychological abuse. Humiliation, controlling who you talk to, isolating you, constant accusations, unpredictable anger, destroying your sense of reality until you doubt your own thoughts. That happens a lot. And that's different from verbal abuse. I mean, it kind of goes into the same like category, but emotional and psychological abuse can be done without like yelling at you or belittling you and mocking you. So that's why I usually categorize it separate. Financial abuse is one of the most common forms of abuse as well. It's pretty much just cutting off access to money, not letting you go to work, not letting you have work. If you have a work, they're gonna take your money, that like the income that comes from that job. They really want you to rely on them, if that makes sense. That way you have no way out.
It's the power.
Yeah. Digital abuse is not talked about a lot at all, and especially in this day and age, it probably should be. So that could be like monitoring your phone, tracking your location, like even if you don't want them to, but they're making you, demanding your passwords, stalking your social media, checking your messages without, like over and over. Like I get like in some relationships, everybody, like you might have like open phone access or something, right? But this is more like they're just demanding it or getting up in your face and taking your phone from you even, and that kind of a stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Threatening to leak private photos you might have. That's very, very common, and it's considered abuse. So then we have stalking. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. I think everybody knows what that is, but it's like showing up where you're at. Repeated unwanted contact, following you around, using other people to check up on you. That's still considered stalking if they're sending the people to do it.
A lot of time it's their own parents that do it and enable their behavior.
That's true. It's all about control through fear.
I was holding my baby 3 days out of the hospital, and my abuser had me by the hair of the head as I had our daughter and was throwing me across the room with his own child.
That's insane. And people do this a lot.
Mm-hmm. And his own aunt sit and watched my baby just being thrown like a rag doll and just said, "You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that to make him mad." What did I do? What did I do?
Well, even if someone's mad, that's still not the right
Exactly.
response. Like at all. Reproductive coercion. This one I did a lot of research, and it's not talked about ever when anybody's talking about it. Like the different kinds of domestic violence. So this could be sabotaging birth control, refusing to use condoms, forcing a pregnancy or an abortion. It happens both ways. Using pregnancy as a tool to trap someone. And that happens a lot. Like all of those happen a lot, but yet that's not a version of abuse that's ever talked about. Spiritual and cultural abuse. So that's using your own faith or traditions or community expectations against you. Shaming, controlling access to religious practices, or manipulating cultural norms to keep you trapped. That one's not talked about a lot, and I don't think people realize the amount of abuse that occurs like behind closed doors. So I added, like personally, just myself. When I talk about this, I added parental manipulation. Yeah, manipulation. And it does fall under the other categories, but there's just so much to it that I really think that it just needs its own category. But here's why. They threaten to take the kids. That's so traumatizing. And sometimes they are capable of doing it because what? They have the job, they have the house, they have the car, you have nothing. So they'll say, I'll take full custody. You'll never get to see them again. And that's how they get a lot of these people to stay, because they made it so that they cannot get out. And now they have a kid, and now they realize I wouldn't even be able to keep my kid if I tried to leave. They turn the kids into weapons a lot of the times too. So they'll put the kids against the survivor. So they'll lie to the kids. They'll make them feel doubtful about the other person, making the survivor look unstable.
They will take, excuse me, they'll take him. I had this experience of my abuser taking P on shopping conversion to make her think that the abuse that I was getting was okay. So he would go out and spend thousands of dollars because he did something to me to make her think I did something to him.
Yeah, it's called parental alienation, and it is abusive, and sometimes the courts don't even see it that way at all. Using the kids as spies, they like to do that a lot. If you live in, like, they could live in the same house, and they'll be like, well, who did mom talk to? Or where did daddy go tonight? Or when they're gone, or like at work or something, did anybody come over today? Like those kinds of things. Like they're using the kids to find out every detail that happened while they were not with the other person.
Yeah.
And that's confusing for the children. It's very traumatizing for the children. And the biggest thing with having kids in a domestic violence situation is they're going to hurt the survivor through the children.
Absolutely.
And as a mother, like, that's one of the hardest things you could watch happen. And then you're kind of trapped. You feel like you have nowhere to go, no leg to stand on. And it's just incredibly hard. It is one of the most terrifying forms of abuse, in my opinion. It's scary.
It's very scary. I'm going through it right now. Right when you feel like it's safe to let your shoulders down, then your doorbell rings and it's the sheriff. You're being summoned to court.
Right. And they really mostly do it just for
Attention.
and should just get back at you.
Yep. Just to make you shake up your life just a little bit, so they know they still have that little bit of control.
Right. That was a lot, but that was like I think that's all of the forms of domestic violence that is very commonly used. I'm sure there's probably more that I missed. I'm sure of it. But this was what I could think of.
We also got the trauma bonding.
Yep, that's a psychological thing that happens. So when I talk about domestic violence and what happens with domestic violence and the different types of abuse, the most common question I get is, well, why didn't they leave? Why can't they just leave? Because you think about it, like, I live in a house, and I have a car and I can talk to people. And so these people that are asking why can't they just leave? They kind of live like that. They have their own space, they have their own way of transport, they have people they can call. And so they think, well, I can just walk out of my house. Why can't somebody else just walk out of the house? And that's just not how it happens at all. In fact, the most dangerous time for a victim is right after and right before they leave. So if they were planning to leave and the abuser finds out, they are more likely to be unalived in that period of time than they were ever in the relationship. So it's the statistic is about 75% of domestic violence related homicides happen when the victim is trying to leave.
Yes.
And that brings me down to, it takes about seven attempts to leave before somebody can get out for good and not go back. And it's not just because they don't want to leave.
They don't have the financial stability. They don't have anywhere to go because their abusers control everything around them.
Right. So they have to safety plan this whole thing. It's like a giant puzzle. And once they safety plan it, right? Once they find a safe way out, once they figure out, however it looks for them, how to get out, they just they have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Right? So they can get out the door. But then they have nowhere to go. And if they are lucky enough to live in an area with domestic violence help, a lot of these places either can't take them or don't believe them. And then what other choice do they have? They just have to go back. And that's almost more dangerous because you just left somebody who's incredibly violent and now you're coming back. So it's way more dangerous for them to keep coming back. But sometimes they have no other choice. 99% of abusive relationships are ran by financial abuse. So 99% of people that get out of domestic violence situations report that they were financially abused, and that is most likely why it was so hard for them to even leave in the first place. So if you have no money, no job, no access to transportation, no bank account, they just made it impossible for you to survive on your own. So you would either sorry.
And by this point, they've just completely alienated you from anyone that can help you. Your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your cousin, a friend. You're just completely alienated from everything.
Right. You would either have to know some pretty nice people that are going to take you in.
Mhm.
You're going to have a immediate placement in a shelter somehow, miraculously. Or you're really just not leaving. And if you've been alienated from everyone and your phone is being monitored and you can't talk to anybody else, how are you leaving? And if they called the police, it probably didn't go well. Right? Because there's story after story after story where they called the police and the police just left them there.
Domestic violence is the only crime that the victim has to prove they're telling the truth.
Yeah, it's insane. But another reason that a lot of people don't leave is because they're afraid of losing their children. Because we can rehash this out again. No job, no money, no place of their own. And if they walk out, they're going to be homeless with children. So their thought process is, well, this person that's abusing me terribly is going to get my children. Who knows what's going to happen to them when I'm not here? So I'll just stay to try to protect them.
And I can speak from experience when I say that staying does the complete opposite to your children. It tears your children apart, and your children doesn't trust anyone.
Yes. Staying in a domestic violence situation is extremely traumatizing for the children, even if they don't show it. Children are really good at not showing what is really hurting them. They're very good at that.
Yes, they are.
3
And
out of 5 cases, when a victim tried to leave, it escalated the violence that was happening to them. And you can feel it happening when you're living in these situations. Like, you can feel like, okay, I'm getting ready to leave. I'm gonna pack up like emergency stuff, and I'm gonna go. And you can feel like the other person just knows. And then they get more crazy, and then they get really scary. So you kind of just don't leave. The amount of strength it takes to leave a house that you are being abused in. Doesn't matter like how big or how small you may think your abuse is. It takes an incredible amount of strength to walk out the door and never look back. Just because of what it does to your brain. And we'll get into that too.
yeah,
So why this happens, why the abuser gets so upset and crazy and all of this stuff when they try to leave is because it triggers their loss of control. So a lot of times, psychologically, these abusers, they need a lot of control in their lives. And the way that they're getting that is they're controlling the victim, right? And when that victim tries to leave, they're going to spiral out because it triggers their loss of control. So that's why they become the most violent, is because they're like, I need it back right now. And it's not happening. Or they end up unaliving somebody or really hurting somebody. And it gets really bad. Between 30 and 50% of survivors who try to leave end up going back just because there's nowhere safe to stay. So shelters are full a lot. If they're lucky enough to be able to get into like an apartment or something, or try like apply for apartments or houses or something, a lot of landlords reject survivors because they might have a sabotaged credit history. They have no bank history. They can't prove that they've been working long enough consistently just because of the abusers being around. And so that's I mean, I know we just talked about it, but like 30 to 50%. That is a big number
that's a huge number.
that have nowhere to go. So you mentioned earlier about trauma bonding.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people find that as like a weakness. A lot of people think, well, they're trauma bonded, so obviously they're mentally ill and this, that, and the other. So it's a psychological phenomenon that happens to like anybody that would be in these situations. And the survivors feel like they're emotionally tied to the relationship because of the cycle of abuse. So the cycle of abuse goes from, I'm going to be really sweet and really kind to you, and then now I'm going to be really angry and I'm going to be aggressive. But then I'm going to say sorry and I'm going to be really sweet and I'm going to be kind to you. And then I'm going to be angry. And so it's very confusing. And over time, it rewires your brain. The abuser often, not every abuser, right? I can't speak for every single person. I'm just going with general like category. But a lot of them often threaten to unalive themselves or the survivor or the children. And these threats work because they're very real. These people are very aggressive. Why would they think that it wouldn't be something they would do? So that doesn't help in the trauma bond either, because they want to fix everything and they want to. It's just a mess. It messes you up psychologically. And that is why a lot of times when you get out of domestic violence, you end up in therapy for a very long time. But I promise it's better than staying.
It's a lot better than staying, like working through it, understanding it, and it gives you a sense of, I guess, purpose. Like it happened for a reason, so why not try to help the next?
Yeah.
I just want to remind y'all to tap the screen and share the live. Please get some people in here to watch this. Thank you.
I don't hear a lot of people talk about disabled domestic violence victims at all, ever. So I'm going to talk about it. So about 50% of victims with disabilities reported being dependent on the abusers for medical care, mobility, or daily functioning. Seems really hard to leave when the person that's like abusing you also like has control of your medications or like your medical equipment or like your mobility. That like slapped me in the face when I first like read that and heard of that because I didn't even think about it at first. But there's people in domestic violence situations that literally can't just get up and walk away. They can't even defend themselves really if something happens to them. And that abuser has full control over all of their medications and could literally just unalive them at any time they get mad. That's insane.
It's scary.
That's very scary. LGBTQ plus survivors. They say that they are more scared that the police won't help or would make it worse just because they think they won't be believed just because of their status of sexuality. And it's, I mean, the statistics point to it that, and they have reason to be scared, but it shouldn't be a thing. My conclusion, I guess, is that people don't just stay because they want to. They really stay because survival is really complicated. There's no perfect answer to tell you why everybody like stays, right? I can't just give you a general, this is why each person stays. I can break it down to different situations, but every situation is different and the reason they stay is different. Most of it boils down though to not having the proper resources or ability to leave.
They're financially dependent, and that's how they want to keep it.
Yes. Yep, 99%, which is pretty much all of them,
Yep.
because it's the easiest way to get somebody to stay.
I mean, on one hand, you're talked to like garbage for not working, but then when you get a job, they make it to where it's so impossible for you to even work.
They don't really want you to work. They just
No.
want to confuse you, and it's a tactic they use. It's not anybody's fault, even though it makes people feel like it's their fault. Like, right? They don't want you to have a job, so you don't have a job. And then they yell at you for not having a job, and so you get a job. And then they yell at you for having money, so you don't have a job. And then that goes back to why they can't get housing after, is because they don't have a work history. They don't have a work history at all. There are people that like are in the working field that experience domestic violence. There's plenty of it. But a lot of times their money is controlled too. Because some people like to maintain like a public face, I guess. So out in public they look like a normal family, but as soon as that door shuts, it's a wrap for everybody.
Fight or flight is a real thing, and it doesn't stop. Like you it's hard to ever feel safe again.
Yeah. It rewires your brain.
I've been away for 5 years, and still to this day, I take different ways when I leave the house, if I leave alone, I'm constantly on guard, even though I know he's not in the States. But, you know, how do I know he's really not looking at me and looking at my home right now?
Right. And that's the reality for many people that get out of domestic violence situations. Like, they are watching their backs constantly.
And you can't, I mean, I'll be honest, you can't really just make true blue bonds with people, because at this point where you're at, you can't trust anyone. Or that's how your mind makes it feel. Like, if I get too close to them, well, they'll, you know, they can do this. Or, you know, if I tell them this, then they're going to use that to manipulate me. Like, you're always on guard.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get off topic.
I mean, it's still on the topic. It changes your brain. PTSD changes your brain.
Absolutely, it does. Like, I wake up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning screaming bloody murder. I woke up hallucinating, thinking that my abuser was standing across the table from me and my daughter, and I'm telling my daughter just to lay down and be quiet. Maybe he'll go away. And, you know, I don't know.
It's a very real thing, and people don't realize that.
And they don't want to talk about it because this is a topic that's just so, it's like, it's so bad to make it a realistic thing. But then, you know, we want to answer the questions. We want you to ask the questions. Like, anything that you want to know, we can do our best to tell you. I'm sure every one of us have about 15 devices in our hands, and if you need the help, we will find you the help.
This is true. A lot of people ask, why couldn't they see the red flags first? Like, how did it get so bad? Like, how did it get so bad that they are literally trapped in a house, or that they can't do anything about it? And that's a fair question. I'm not going to hate on anybody. It's a fair question.
Absolutely.
But we still got to learn about it. So, what they don't see in the beginning is, a lot of times this person is very charming, very sweet, very overshowering with love a lot sometimes. It's weird when you think about it a little bit. And it doesn't all happen overnight, right? So often, most relationships don't start in just full-blown being strangled or kicked or slapped or taking all your money. It builds up over time. So they might start limiting contact with friends or family, but it doesn't sound like, oh, well, you just can't ever see them again. It sounds more like, well, I know you were going to go with your friends this weekend, but I really wanted to hang out with you this weekend. And I know we hang out every weekend, but like, I'd rather you stay here than go with your friends.
And 9 chances out of 10, you're going to say okay because you love them.
Yep. And so you think you love them, and you're going to say okay. And it's not going to look like to anybody that he's starting to be controlling and that he doesn't actually want you to go with your friends. So over time, eventually, you stay in more. You don't go out anymore. You don't really call people anymore, because when you get on the phone, it's, who are you talking to? Why are you talking to them more than me? All those kinds of questions. And eventually, you just don't even want to deal with it anymore. Or you decide, yeah, well, you know, I've been in with you, like, or I've been hanging out with you for the last, 4 weekends. I really want to go do this with my friends, and I'm sorry, but I'm just going to go do that. And maybe he lets you go. But when you come back, he's not talking to you, or he's very angry at you, or maybe he doesn't hit you yet, but you're definitely going to hear about it. So eventually, just like I've been saying, your brain changes.
Yeah.
And you start doing what they're telling you to do.
And you see nothing wrong with it. And every time someone around you tells you that's not right, then that builds a wall up between you and that person.
Yep. And then it comes down to like the jealousy that's being said as love. So I just love you, but like they're clearly jealous of you talking to anybody else.
You can't have any friends, like, unless they're him approved or her approved.
Yep. And some of them, yeah, yep. And some of them will make your like. I've known situations where the abuser has went to like the family or like the friends and said like and just lied to them, just straight up lied to them to kind of like put a block in between them. It could be as simple as, oh, they just started doing drugs, or like it could be anything, but they're gonna make you look bad.
Yeah.
It'll be small at first, but it happens. They're gonna start monitoring phones more, or even your social media, and they might make it like seem nonchalant at first, right? They don't want to catch you off guard, so they might like ask to see your phone and then they look through it. They're not just going to straight up say, give me your phone and I'm doing this. Like it doesn't just happen like that. Eventually it gets to that point. Yeah. They might even control what you're wearing. That happens a lot. They'll say, oh, you can't go out wearing that. Or that looks really bad on you, or I think you should wear this instead. And yeah, I mean, I guess having a little bit of opinion from other people is good, but to then for almost everything that you wear, you're being criticized and belittled, and it's just not a good place to be in.
And it's always good to have at least one person that you've confided in, and you have to trust somebody.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have this mindset that abusers are going to be like really ugly people, or they are dirty people, or you just would know, right? If you walked by somebody on the road, like the street, walking down the street, you would know that they are just a scary person. Except for, that's not how that works. Like, some of these people are very respected people, like in their jobs or communities. Some of these people might be really, really nice outside of the home, like to everyone else. Or they might have like a good friend group and they just kind of accept the behaviors. They don't really see them as abusive, and they're going to gaslight you because they're going to be like, well, none of this, he's not like that.
Yep.
He doesn't do that. He's kind. He has a really nice job. That happens a lot.
They come from such a good family.
Now, there are some people that don't. I mean, there's people everywhere. I'm just saying
Right.
that we can't discriminate, okay? It can be anybody and everybody. They like to test the boundaries, and that's how they get started almost with somebody. So they start small, just like we talked about. They start small, and then they escalate over time. And if they get away with it, like when it's small, and they realize, okay, now I can push it a little farther. And then the next time I can push it a little farther. And the next time I push it farther and farther. And this is by no means the victim's fault at all. You can't even see it's happening. It's pushing the boundaries so small at a time that you almost don't even see it happening. So it's not. The last thing I want to do is victim blame and say, like, they should have seen it or they should have just said no. Because I promise you, a lot of people have said no and it didn't end well for them. It's a game of survival. You do what you have to do to survive, and if you haven't been in that situation, then you don't get a say in what they did. Their favorite thing to do is making the victim codependent on them. So making them feel like they're not good enough, they're not worth anything. They they feel like they're not able to survive without them.
Yeah, that you can't function. You can't, you can't pay your bills. You can't take care of your kids. You can't feed yourself. You can't feed your kids. If, your partner's not there, then everything's just gone. It's ripped away.
Yep. And this is why people stay.
I mean, I guess now we can go into a little bit of, how people, I can tell you how I got away. I put some clothes in a basket, all of Paris's important information, birth certificate, shot records, all of that. I had a friend pick me up, and he called me when I was going out the door, and he figured out what we were doing. And I told the girl to take off with Paris so she was safe, and I just took off running to get away from her. But that took 6 months of planning to even be able to do.
Yeah. I'm glad you got away.
Yeah.
But that's like the reality. Like, you don't just decide one day, yep, this is it, I'm done, and I'm walking out the door.
Yeah.
Most people don't.
No, it's almost impossible to just walk out a door.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's the hardest thing to do in the world is to get the courage, right?
Yeah.
And that's hard.
I did it for 13 years. 13 years I sit there every day and let a man do that to me. He poured mop water over my head. I've had pew-pews in my mouth. I've been tied up. I've been beaten with anything that you can think of. Things have been done to my daughter in front of me. It's a dangerous game, and people don't understand how dangerous it is. And the things that I'm saying, I'm sure Cassie can follow up with something more traumatic, because at the end of the day, what you think is the worst that can happen to somebody, it can get 10 times worse.
Yeah.
I'm nervous. I'm shaking. It's hard to talk about, and it's hard to just put it out there and say, yes, it did happen. I do advocate for it in every awareness lab we have. And I'm just thankful that I come across you and your foundation to be able to just educate more people, because if we help one person tonight, we've done what we need to do.
This is true. This is the goal. I want to talk about the impact domestic violence has on children. It's a touchy subject because nobody really wants to hear about it still. But I think it's important. A lot of people's children have experienced domestic violence, and a lot of children today are still experiencing domestic violence. And we talked about parental manipulation, and that's traumatizing in and of itself, and it confuses the children. And so these are going to affect them in many ways. We're going to have mental health issues. We're going to have anxiety, depression, and trauma symptoms. And if you know about anything about children, that's not a good combination to have, because they don't know how to handle that. They don't know how to deal with it. So now they're going to have a lot of behaviors. And so it's challenging and it's difficult. And there's therapy, right? There's ways to help the situation. But the longer you stay, the worse these symptoms, and the longer they will have to spend trying to fix them. They are going to have a lot of difficulty concentrating. They're going to have a hard time sleeping. Just like if it's this hard for us adults to survive the after, just imagine that even though the kids don't always show it, it is probably worse for them because their brains aren't developed yet and they have no idea what the hell is happening.
They have no clue. My daughter's 13 years old, and they're still nice that she comes and gets in bed with me just because she says, "Mommy, are we truly safe now?"
Yeah, there's lasting effects.
Yeah.
And again, we're not going to victim blame. We're not going to say, well, you caused this because you stayed in that house. That's not our goal here.
Right.
At all. right? But this is the reality of what happens if you stay. And it's just the facts of it.
Yep.
And there's a lot. I don't want to get too much into it just because, like, I guess this is the first time we've done this on this app, so I don't want to get somebody offended and
Well, I don't care if it does offend anybody. Paris's grandmother called her, and Paris asked her why she was calling her. She didn't know her, and the grandmother told her she was going to put her in jail for not talking to her. And Paris hung up on her.
Good for her.
I mean, so they're taking up for themselves. I believe. I mean, I try to get it through her head. We're worth more than what we was.
She'll
We've
learn
always
it.
been worth more.
She's got some time. She'll learn it.
Absolutely.
But this also increases in the risk of them, children as a whole, of domestic violence, to become a future victim of domestic violence,
Yep.
or it doesn't happen often, but they do become abusers as well. So when you get out of a domestic violence situation with your children, well, the goal is with your children. Sometimes that can't happen. Some things happen, okay, right? Every situation is different. It is not your fault. But my best recommendation is lots and lots and lots of therapy for everybody.
Yep.
Domestic violence does a lot to your brain, but it does a lot to your body too. So, like, a lot of people, like, have a lot of physical problems after being in a domestic violence situation, medical problems. And I keep saying it, but it changes your brain. So, like, you're going to have a lot of memory issues.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma bonding is a big thing that you're going to have to figure out. And it's not, like, this is all fixable. Well, maybe not the memory issues and that stuff, but, like, a lot of this is helpable with therapy.
Absolutely.
If you want to do it and if you try.
And I mean, for any child that's went through it, I do believe, like, they do need intensive trauma therapy, because it's hard for a child to see one of their parents being abused, or that child being abused as well.
Yeah. Emotional numbness or dissociation is a huge one. Did you know that, well, you don't know this, but I didn't have feelings, like no feelings whatsoever until like a year and a half ago.
Wow.
Like, no good feelings, no bad feelings. Like, I was just blank. That's like it's a thing that happens apparently.
It really is. Like, you can just go and you're numb. You're just absolutely numb,
Right.
because your brain has made it to where, as long as you're numb, you can't feel anything. Nothing bothers you.
Right. I think, yeah, it's a coping
Yeah.
strategy. It's a survival strategy. It's the brain adapting to survive, and the brain adapts to survive for everyone differently, but it does adapt, and that's why it's so hard to, like, pinpoint. Let me rephrase this. That is why they say it's so hard to pinpoint if someone's, like, truly a victim or not. Because there's no book you can just pick up and say, this is what's going to happen every single time. And so, like, to them, to, like, okay, like, the legal system, the police, like, all these people, that's why it's so hard for survivors to be heard by these people, is because they might not be reacting to the situation the way that the other party assumes that they should be. Because with trauma, there is no should. It just happens. There are people trying to change that. Trying to prove, like, this is, like, a thing. that like there's not like nobody should be acting any sort of way after trauma happens. It literally changes your brain and you react based on how your brain has changed. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes perfect sense. Sorry.
No, you're okay. My favorite thing is to talk about the myth of domestic violence versus the reality of it. So we've already talked about it. The myth is if it was really that bad, they would leave. Right? If it was really that bad, if it was really that uncomfortable, if they hated it that much, they would just leave. And we have discovered that leaving is the most dangerous time for a survivor. It is the most likely for them to be unalived during that time. We've got domestic violence only happens to certain types of people. So like we'll just group like maybe like low income people. We could go with that, right? That's a very common myth. People think it only happens to poor people. But it affects every race, every gender, right? I don't want to come in here and ever say that it's just affecting women or anything like that, because it affects every gender, every income level, and every single community. It doesn't discriminate.
No, it affects the rich, poor, medium. It affects probably 1 in 5 neighbors. I'm just pulling that off the top of my head. Don't quote me on that, but
It is. Men could not possibly be victims of domestic violence. The reality of that is men experience domestic violence too, but we don't often hear about it as much because they face extreme shame or disbelief from everyone. So if you already know that nobody's going to believe me based on the way I look or my gender, right? When I walk out of here, I'm not going to say anything to anybody. If I already know how everybody's going to treat me, I'm not going to go around telling people. I'm not going to go seeking help. It's just not fair. So, men definitely are victims of domestic violence. It's not as many as women because of the fact that most men don't self-disclose. So I think if we had a true, accurate description or study or whatever, I think that number would be higher. That's not like fact. I just think that.
I agree with that because I feel like men are more ashamed to come and say that it's happening to them.
Yeah. The biggest myth of all is that it's just about anger issues. Person just can't control their anger. That's it. But the reality is domestic violence abuse is mostly about control, not losing control. So if you're angry and say me and you are just sitting in a room and you get really angry, or I make you really angry, rightfully so, whatever. I make you really angry and you start throwing things and you start doing this, that, and the other. That anger is now out of control. So domestic violence anger is in control, or it starts out in control until they possibly maybe black out. But it's a very much control thing, very much abusive control, very much violent control. But they are definitely controlling all of it to make you do what they want you to do.
Yeah.
It's not an accident. None of it is an accident.
I'd never thought about it like that.
sometimes you got to think about it differently before you like can see it.
Yeah, you really do. And, you learn new things every single day. I mean, you can sit here and act like you know everything, but I don't know everything. Only thing I can do is try to help when possibly I can. But
Yeah.
I think maybe you should share a little of your story and background as well, if you don't mind.
My response to that is which part?
The parts you're comfortable with.
So, well, again, I grew up being trafficked by my family. That's again a very much controlled abuse. So that altered my brain chemistry from the beginning. And somehow I was a very strange person when I was born, I guess. And I hated the way I was groomed to be brought up to be like them, right? I was being brought up to do what they do. I was the oldest kid in the family, so I was being brought up to do what they were doing. And I hated every minute of it. Not all of my siblings did, but I couldn't stand it. I could not stand hurting other people. I couldn't, it was the biggest war internally of my life because they were doing these horrible things. These horrible things were happening to me, and I'm supposed to be doing this to other people? I couldn't stand it. So I eventually got out. Well, the SWAT team came and they got all of us out when I was like 14. And there were 7 of us in the house. So my youngest sibling was 2 at the time, and I was 14. And they brought us like out. We went in foster care, and I had no concept of what the world actually was. So I was left in pretty much in a house, or I was either transported to other places, but I never had like experiences going places with the general public. So I had no idea that there was this entire world out here, and that scared the crap out of me because I was confused. And they were placing me in these homes with like really nice people, and I was even more confused because why would they do that? And like, why are these people being nice, and what do they want from me, and what am I supposed to do for them? And it was very confusing. And so I did what any other traumatized person would do, and I went out and found myself some violence. And I started out with this boyfriend who was very aggressive right off the bat, but I might have been like 15 at the time, but I didn't care. That's what I was looking for. I didn't look for it intentionally, but I was so used to being treated like this that this was normal, and that I could not function in a world without the violence. So I had this boyfriend for a while, and it was fine. It was normal to me. And it was not fine. I was being sarcastic, but I probably should say that. That was definitely not a fine situation that happened. And I was in foster care. And so I got into like some really nasty situations. I was prostituting. And bringing this money back to this boy, and my family, like some of my siblings and stuff were around, and I was, yeah, there's things I can't say on here, but there was things that were going on, and I was putting myself into situations that were very familiar to me because I was a traumatized child, but I also wasn't somebody that was just going to take somebody else's shit either. So I began like, I don't know, my version of defending other people in street fights. Not very safe, very dangerous. Okay, so I was looking for this violence, like unintentionally, sort of. Well, they ended up removing me from the home that I was in, thankfully, and they put me into a residential, like a facility, because they were like, you're just going out and doing terrible things. So I went into this residential, and I feel like I'm just telling you like my life story at this point. But I kind of like, I don't know, I learned a little bit about myself. I learned how to be a little bit calm, and I kind of had this life figured out. I was just gonna try to like live on a straight life. I was not gonna live like anybody else that like I had grown up with, and I was wrong. So I got out when I was like 18, and this is actually gonna sound really bad. I had another boyfriend, and he was so nice. He was so nice, in fact. I literally moved houses because I was scared of how nice he was. And I know that sounds really bad and that sounds really dramatic, but that's literally what happened. I was in an apartment, and I moved to a house like overnight one night because I was so scared because of how nice this person was. And that sounds literally insane, but when I tell you trauma rewires your brain, it does, and it does so big time.
Very much does, because I still feel the same way you feel then now.
Yeah. So I ended up with another boyfriend, of course, and I got myself into a nasty, like it was just like this, just like I've been telling you guys. It was totally fine off the bat, super nice, bigger than me, but like you know, he was nice, and he bought me things, and you know, I don't know, I just wasn't paying any attention. We're not like, right, it's not, I guess it wasn't my fault technically, but because I didn't see it happening, and I would never blame somebody else. But then he started like getting really physical, and he, you know, pinned me to the wall one day, and I was like, well, that's not what I thought was going to be happening. So I like would fight back. And this is really bad because typically if somebody fights back, that's just going to escalate the behavior, and this person's bigger than me. So I'm going to like end up like screwed, right? But I didn't care. I was so pissed off, and I had lived a life like that was absolutely crazy my entire life. So I didn't care. I'm just going to fight back. Well, he pinned me to the floor and choked me out, and then destroyed my entire house. And I was like, well, fuck this shit. And I was done. And that was it, because I knew, like, I knew already, like, that was like, I'm a very statistics based person. Like, I read about everything. And I knew that as soon as you get strangled for like the first time, you were, now I don't even remember, I think it's 8 more times likely to die or unalive.
750%.
There we go. Okay. I was like, I know it's a lot, but like there was a big statistic about it, and it just, as while this is happening, it was just going through my head. The next thing he's gonna do is kill me, or unalive me. Sorry, we're gonna get banned. And I just kept like the next thing, and so I told him to get out, and he did. And I don't know why he did, because that doesn't work for everybody, but he did. And it happened to be my house, and I had, you know, full control over that at that point still. And I got lucky. I got really, really lucky. And I ended up getting custody of my siblings shortly after. And it was then that I realized that I couldn't just randomly trust people. And I really had to go to therapy, and I did go to therapy. And I mean, I still go to therapy a lot. Obviously, this stuff doesn't go away. So it became my endeavor from pretty much then on out that I was going to figure out a way to get this to stop happening to people. And I wanted to make an organization of some sort, but I didn't know exactly how to do it and how I was going to do it. And I kind of was lost, so I just learned a lot about it, and I learned about all of the different kinds of abuse, and I learned about, I almost like studied this like on my own, okay? Like I went and I paid attention to different shelters, and I worked at a shelter, and I worked in the emergency room, and I learned as much as I possibly could. And then I hated all of it because the way that a lot of people are running this, they're not running it from a survivor's perspective. They're running it from just a regular person that wanted to help's perspective. And we need all the help that we can get. But when something is run by a survivor, I think it's a lot better because they know what is actually needed. So Meg and I ended up, she's up here. We ended up creating Hope into Healing together. And we both are survivors of a lot of crap. And we spent the majority of this year busting our asses trying to figure out how to run this so that it actually helps people and it doesn't discriminate against people. And that somehow one day we may be able to lessen the effects of domestic violence or the how much it happens. And it took all that. It took a lot of trauma to find this passion. It took a lot. But I wouldn't change it. We don't get paid for this. I mean, maybe one day, but we don't get paid for any of it. All of the funds that come in go straight to different programs that we have, and I can explain that stuff too if you want. But it was just something we really wanted to do, and we didn't actually mean to open it this year. It just happened to be that there was a high need, and so we opened it, and then we were able to open, we're going to open a drop-in center in Pennsylvania in, December 7th, and I'm hoping that we get to open our own shelters, and we'll do a lot of advocacy and education. I think education is going to be the biggest thing to get people, like awareness. Awareness is going to not fix it, but help it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Sass goes live and she's knitting 500 hats for the Children's Hospital. I mean, I can't sing her praises enough.
Oh, I'm knitting the hats for the drop-in center for the
drop-in center.
But yes, that's a lot. Well, crocheting them, but that's a lot, and I'm like, I mean, I wouldn't change it, but I mean, this is really what I was meant to do. It's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of unpaid work, and I have a lot going on in my life. I think we all we know, and I still wouldn't change it. It's been a great, especially just the last few months have been really nice.
I guess
I
we
mean,
could open it.
I think it's definitely a subject that needs to be talked about more because it's affected everybody in some way or another, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, somebody knows somebody or they've been through it or they've seen it, and it's a touchy subject.
Yeah.
Does anyone have questions for her?
We can bring people in the boxes if you want.
I'm going to leave that up to Chuck.
Well, I mean, if there's people that want to share their story, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I can share my story. I've never shared my story publicly.
Oh, please do, Chuck.
But, I mean, I was in a terrible relationship when I got out of high school, and I was with him for 8 years, and he told me, if not daily, every other day that he would kill me if I left. And, he was never abusive. He never hit me. And I had all the money I could ever want in the world. But when you hear that so many times, you start to believe it. And giving your child to your mother and not knowing that if you're ever going to see her again is the hardest thing to do in the world. Because I was sure the day that I left that I would never see her again. And she's the reason that I left. So, I mean, you just got to get the strength up, right?
You do. I'm so proud of you. It's so hard,
It is
especially
so
when there's
hard.
not like obvious signs of abuse. You said it's not abuse, but it definitely was abuse.
Absolutely. That's what I was
He
going to
didn't
correct her
insert
on.
any violence to me. I mean, he never raised a hand to me. It's just,
Emotional
when
abuse.
you hear that every single day, pretty much every single day for 8 years, I mean, you believe it. And he put me through hell after I left. I mean, don't get it wrong. I had people sitting outside of my house watching me. People would come in my house while I was at work, just so I would know they were there. And there was nothing anybody could do to help me.
And Chuck, I have to interfere right there and say that most of the time mental abuse is worse than the physical because the bruises and all of that heals. And over time, sometimes you forget, but that mental stays with you forever until the day you die.
Oh yeah, I still have nightmares. Rammer knows. I mean, I still have wake up with and nightmares, and I can't sleep. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was rough. It was a really hard time of my life.
I think it's important when people share their stories because it shows, like, when you guys, well, I guess all of us truly share our stories, it shows like how much it affects you in the after. I should have added this to the myths, but there's a very common misconception that once you get out, you're fine and everything's fine.
That's not true at all.
And it's one of the biggest lies known to man. Maybe we don't always show it to the public, but I promise you, every single person that has been a victim or a survivor of this has a lot of issues after, whether that's mentally, or physically, or just in life, your day-to-day life.
When they sent me away for 2 years to protect Pierce and I'm more messed up after that than I think I was before I left. Because I had no contact with no one. Paris had no contact with anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it lasts for a long time. I'm still not good with everything. Even if I see a car drive by too many times, like it still freaks me out a lot. So, I still have a lot of triggers with it. I mean, I'm much better than I was 20 years ago, of course. But yeah, it's still really very vivid in my mind.
I just wanted to say a lot of the things that you guys talked about tonight, almost everything I can relate to. Mine went on for 28 years. He wore me down so bad that I didn't think I had anything to live for. I was just surviving day by day. If it weren't for my adult kids basically giving me an ultimatum, you're leaving mom now, today, and we're not coming back. If you don't leave today, you won't see your grandkids and you won't see us. That's the only way that they could get me to leave. But now that was the best decision they ever made.
That's what I was going to say. Thank God for your babies.
But the damage I did to them by not leaving, that guilt will be with me forever. Because talking to them, they never told me a lot of the stuff that went through their head until after I left.
And I think that's something all
And
DV
it hurts. It really hurts, the guilt that if I had just left, my kids would have had a happier life. And instead they're having to deal. I mean, they're okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. My adult kids, they're wonderful. They have normal jobs. My son's married. I'm expecting my third grandkid. I mean, they're as normal as they can be. But I worry about my daughter. She has one son, and he has changed her life, and that's all. But she doesn't want anything to do with men. I don't ever see her getting married or anything. Just having the one son. And that's what's so sad, because I think of what she's seen her father do to me, that she doesn't want to have anything to do with a man. And I just don't know how to get her to get over that.
Well,
It's
my
gonna
daughter
be,
says the same thing.
yeah, that's gonna be on them and they take time. And I know that the guilt is real. And I know that, like, there was nothing you could do, there was nothing you could have done different. If you could go back and redo it with what you only knew then, you would be doing the same things that you did then. So the only reason you think it could be different or you feel guilty is because of what you know now. So you got to live life with what you know now
Right.
and move forward with that.
It's like,
And
and the financial abuse, I had said in the comments, he never didn't make me quit work. I always worked and everything. That was never an issue, but money was. We had dual income. I'm one income now, and I feel like I have more money now. That's basically the same bills that I had before, but yet I have more money. And it was well over twice as much money that we had. So I can't even explain where all that money went. That to me is financial abuse because he spent money all the time and didn't pay. Basically, I paid all the bills, I guess. And he just spent his money just like it was free money and didn't really take care of our family. But I didn't know that until after I got out of that situation.
yeah,
Yeah, and mine was quite the opposite. I mean, I didn't have to worry about money. I didn't have to worry about working. He wouldn't let me work anyways. So mine was the opposite, you know. I was free to pretty much do whatever I want. And then, you know, that's when people ask me, well, why didn't you leave? And I'm like, it's just really not that simple, you know?
It's not.
It's really very psychological. I don't think people understand that part, you know?
And
That's the part.
and a lot of times the family of the abuser will take their side and they won't. If you think about going to the family, most of the time they're going to make excuses for him or not believe anything because they've never seen that side of him. You know, like my ex-husband he was the football coach. He was the best at work. He was everybody's best friend. They would never know behind the scenes that he was the
See,
worst abuser ever.
mine was quite the opposite. It was my family. They thought he was amazing. We thought he was a wonderful person.
Mm.
And even my own mother was like, you're crazy if you leave him, even after I told her several times what he was saying to me. And she really just thought it was all in my head. And I'm like, you know, I'm telling you this because it's true, not because, you know, I'm making things up.
Did they see the finances? Because obviously he must have had a good enough job that you didn't work. So they probably thought he was successful just in the fact that he made enough money to take care of your family.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have kids. That's actually why I left. Had my daughter, and I started just hoarding back money.
Mm.
And I decided one day to leave. I gave my mom papers in case something happened to me to have custody of my daughter. And I just told her to promise me that, you know, if something happened to me, to make sure that he never got custody of her.
I think that's another thing where I think it limits the number of children we want to bring into the world too, because most of the people that I know that were going through abuse only had one or two kids because you don't want to bring any more in to that situation.
Yeah, I mean,
A lot of
I,
times, though, the abusers make you bring more into the
And that's
equation.
true too. Yes, because there's so many different types of abusers.
that's why there's not one set
You can't.
explanation or why they don't get out or how to help somebody get out. And
There's
that's what
no.
makes it tricky.
There's no poster boy to domestic violence.
Right.
yeah,
I
and you
hate
know,
that
mine was he was amazing in the beginning. I mean, we went on trips, we did all kinds of wonderful things. It was
Mm-hmm.
great, you
The
know,
love
and then
bombing.
just a few months later, everything changed. And I mean, everything changed.
Yep.
that emotional abuse that will stick with you for. I know to this day, if I see someone who exactly looks like him, even from afar, I just go into a panic attack because ever since the day I left, we have had no contact with him. We don't know where he's at. We know he's been evicted. We can't find him, so we don't know we don't even know if he's alive, and we really probably don't care. But we live in a small town, and his family is from this area, so we suspect that he's still in the area. But I'm still afraid when I go out sometimes, or I see a car that he drives. It just triggers me to.
Yeah, my daughter's wedding, my daughter recently got married, and her wedding was a huge trigger for me because I was so scared that he was going to show up. And I hated to be like that because it's her dad, you know?
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a huge trigger for me. I mean, Rammer, she's here in the box. She had to talk me down many times because I was waking up, crying, screaming in my sleep, nightmares,
Wow.
because I had so much anxiety about that.
Like
Like,
I
I'm
said
so
earlier, I
sorry
just
about
don't
that.
understand why we're only getting 35 to 50 people in here. This subject is such a taboo that people will not stay in here and listen.
It's hard to hear, and it's hard
Well,
for
we can
people
have
to
a beggar live in here that's just a bunch of BS. Compared to domestic violence, and we can have 500 people in here, but we can only get 50 people for this. That's how much of a taboo it is. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
It's
I
really hard for
wholeheartedly
people.
agree.
It's
Mm-hmm.
hard for people to hear, and I get that. And I never expected to get a huge crowd tonight because it is a tough subject. But I think if we keep touching on it and talking about it and having lives every so often
I
about
think it's
it,
a good idea.
it's gonna become a better thing. So I do have plans to talk to the ladies to keep trying to touch on this subject. At least try for once a month or so, because I think it's important. I don't think that people understand how much it really affects you and how many people it affects.
Well, if you need any help, I'm here to help if you need anything.
Well, I
Thank
also
you.
think that
Appreciate you.
it's ridiculous that, we have to be very careful what we say on here, but
Yeah.
other peoples can come on here and just be the awfulest human beings ever was, and they stay up.
Yeah, because you go through some of the lives late, especially late at night, early morning. The things that people say and get away with is crazy.
Mm-hmm. I'm up doom scrolling at witching hours at 3 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like the stuff. I don't know.
And I mean, I could go into more detail about what happened to me, but I don't want Check's page taken down, because I mean, it's
Oh,
things
don't
that
worry
people
about my
don't need to.
page.
Well, I know
I've
you
lost
have
accounts
Timothy,
and I have other accounts. I'm not that worried about it.
but I also don't want to take it to a point to where it traumatizes somebody else or it triggers someone with my words, because that's something I never want to do. I tried to use my
But if
words
you
so
trigger
carefully.
sometimes though, that trigger might be the one thing that they needed to leave. Is the
Yeah.
way I look at it by getting out the
Okay,
word.
what if we don't do and tell your story on a live? What if we do like I don't know.
I know
Well,
we said
we
was
have a
gonna do
podcast, but what if we did like a YouTube interview style and put it on a YouTube
I mean, I
for
would.
educational purposes?
Yeah, I mean, I shared pictures the other day. I was burned. Boiling water was threw on me, and I wasn't allowed to go to the hospital until I was septic shock and about died. And he called CPS and told them that I was on, the bad stuff, and they're calling me, and I'm like, I'm in the hospital because he burnt me, and it's a lot.
It is, and I think your story is important to tell. I just think that we need to tell it in maybe a different kind of setting.
You can say it.
What?
Paris wants to tell you guys, God bless you.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, don't worry about my account. I've lost accounts. I'm not worried about losing account or followers. So we're good,
Are
really.
courts still not treating domestic violence as much as they should? Because I
It
know
is
for a long,
it is actually legal in the state of West Virginia for you to take your wife to the courthouse on Sunday and beat her.
oh my
I know
god,
that
That
is the law, but I'm not sure that that would actually stand. So the law is actually like really outdated, and that's how come people are getting away with this kind of stuff. I think if publicly that actually happened, somebody would get arrested for it. I
I
don't
would
think it
hope
would
so.
stand. But I do know that the laws are surrounding domestic violence. All of the laws in general are very outdated, and they just don't fit our society anymore. Not all of them, but some of them, and this happens to be one of them. And until those laws are changed in every state and everyone takes it seriously, it will not change. So, like, domestic violence is preventable, but we have to understand it to prevent it. And a lot of people, as we've seen, are not willing to sit and understand it. So, the more awareness that, any of us are able to bring, the more the next person understands, and the more people understand, the more change will begin to happen.
And there may only be 30 some people in here, but maybe one of these people that's in here, it's changed their mind on what domestic violence and trafficking and, all the other violence is, and maybe it helps somebody. I mean, that's all we can ask for.
Yeah.
And I mean, if Chuck wants to do this like once a month, I'm absolutely down for it if Sass is.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I mean, because it's hard. I'm sitting here and I'm trembling. Like, it's a very hard subject for anybody. I heard Sass tear up a few times. I've had to go on mute because I've just started wailing and crying because, it is a hard subject. And as survivors, like, I don't even like to call myself a victim. I'm a survivor. And we just have to band together and figure out a way to just stop it.
We can't just leave every time it triggers us, though.
Exactly.
We have to sit here and we have to deal with it. Otherwise, it's just going to continue,
That's
and there's going to
actually
be more and more victims. And we need to. We know what it's like to go through it, so we need to figure out ways to make people more aware, so that we can get more people in here. Otherwise, it's just going to continue.
That's actually the cure to PTSD. I learned this in therapy. Instead of just running away or avoiding. So avoidance is what keeps you sick or in that sick mindset, I guess. So if you have PTSD, what you're going to do naturally is avoid, because that's how your brain is protecting you from something happening again. So our brains develop PTSD because back in the day, back in the day, a long, long time ago, before any of us were born, when people were like cave people, their brains were wired to, if I see a tiger and I just watched my friend get eaten by said tiger, I now know not to go near tiger. So our brains still have that survival wiring because we didn't update, and that is how come PTSD is a thing. So it's literally like a trick of the mind, and that is why it's so hard to deal with, is because it's literally in your brain, and your brain is telling you one thing that's not necessarily true, but you believe it to be true to keep yourself safe. So in order to get over it or cure it or whatever, you literally have to not avoid whatever your brain is trying to avoid. And then over time, your brain is going to think, oh, well, this is safe now, and now I can handle it, and I can do it, and it over time, it heals your brain. Kind of the same thing as if we keep avoiding the topic of domestic violence or SA or human trafficking, it's allowing it to keep happening and keep getting worse. But if we can get people to face it head on, the more people that know, the more people that see, the more people there will be that will be able to do something about it. The less likely it is for it to keep happening and people to keep being re-victimized.
I agree. I think the more that it's talked about, the more that it's out there, the more it's going to give people strength and maybe just the little spice they need to leave.
Maybe we could have another live on how to survive it once you leave. It's like in my situation, I had to move in with my son for a couple months while I saved up enough money to get my own apartment, and he destroyed our credit. So it took me another year to almost get a car. So everything has been a step. And after 2 years, I'm finally almost where I should be as a normal 50-year-old woman. But it took me 2 or 3 years to rebuild my life. And maybe we could do something with that too.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, I'm 5 years out, and I mean, I think I work a full-time job, even though I'm sick now, but, Paris is very well taken care of. She, I do it for my baby.
Right.
And I think that's a very, very good idea.
We always talk about resources. I'm sure there's resources out there that we can find that maybe I didn't use any resources, but I'm sure that maybe there is. Because going through everything I did, I maintained the same job. I've worked from home for 10 years. So I didn't have, as I moved around, my job just came with me. I didn't have to worry about where I landed because my job it didn't matter where I was at. But a lot of people, if they would move 50 miles away, they might have to find a new job.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. I mean, so like resources, we always talk about resources.
Well,
Maybe.
I fled from Florida back to, I went to South Carolina, and I stayed there for about a week and a half, so I couldn't be found. And then I came on back to good old West Virginia, and, then we got put in PC for 2 years, and then we finally got to come home.
I'm sorry, can you explain, what's PC?
Protective custody.
Oh, okay.
Because it just wasn't safe. Like, they tried to snatch me at courthouses. It was just insane.
Oh, wow.
I think a live on surviving after is really important, or it could be really important.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the hardest things, like getting through it. Yeah, that's hard. But I almost think, and I might be like really far out on this one, I really think surviving the after is harder.
I agree. Sometimes I think it's
completely
harder.
agree.
I think it's harder in my mind some days to live a normal life than what it was then. I don't know if that makes sense, because I guess I got so used to fighting every day that now that I have peace and, serenity, it's like, when's the next shoe gonna drop?
It makes you second guess everybody
In your life.
Everybody's intention. You try to date again, and your guards are up. It's really hard to get out there and try again, because all you ever knew was the person that did all that to you.
Yeah.
And you don't think that there's somebody else out there.
Yeah.
And you probably have, not that you intend to, but you could ruin what was a good thing because you had all your walls up.
Oh, I'll be completely 100% honest with this. I had a best friend from the time I was 13 years old, and he went through the entire DV relationship with me, begging me to come home. And when I finally came home and I went through therapy, and he went to therapy with me, and he's so patient with me, and now I'm about to get married, and I'm getting my happily ever after finally, but it's scary. I'm scared to death, like, what's coming next? Like, I can't just be at peace. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think that's kind of where people talk about being an overthinker, and I think that's what part of the survival afterwards is too, because you try to think of every situation that could happen. And usually you're not trying to be positive because you've only known negative.
Exactly. And everybody's like, you're a doomsday prepper. Well, I want to be ready because, you know, he's done da 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 da, and somebody's told me he did this. And, you know, it's just, and you try to cut all communications with everybody you've ever known. And I've been no contacts with my entire family for, I want to say, going on 3 years now because they gave my location of where I was, and I had to be moved. So my mother, my grandmother, my poppy raised me. He's dead, God rest his soul, but I don't have contact with any of my family because it seems like they just wanted the cycle to continue, and I refuse to let the cycle continue for P.
And that's the best you can do.
You know, I mean, she just walked in here and just wanted to say, God bless you to you guys. Like, you know, don't get it wrong. She's a brat. She's a typical 13-year-old, but, you know.
Aren't they all?
Yeah. But she's my little brat, and, you know, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up what she went through, but she says she'll spend the rest of her life making me know that it wasn't my fault. So, you know, sometimes our kids have it figured out before we do.
That's the truth.
But I think it was productive, and, you know, I think it might be a good place to end unless anybody else has questions. Well, Fallon, we'll give it over to you then.
I want to thank you guys for being here tonight. All of you that are in the chat that were so faithfully sharing it out, liking the live, and commenting with your stories. It is a very tough subject to talk about, somebody having so much control over your life. But I want you guys to know how important each of you are. And I do want to touch on a couple of key things that stood out to me that Sass said and Amanda talked about, and then Hope was saying down in the comments. On average, 24 people per minute are victims of rape, physical violence, and stalking by an intimate partner or someone that you know. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men experience physical violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime. But the most jarring statistic tonight that I heard Sass talk about was that the study shows 75 times more likely if you're strangled in your relationship, that's a red flag. That's not just abuse, that's a red flag for murder. Get out of there. 75 times more likely that person will unalive you. So that statistic in sports, in voting, in any type of setting in the world is a very solid number. You need to get the hell out of there. Please find a way to reach out to someone that you trust. Use a code word. Go find a safe space for you and your family. Find a plan in your mind. You don't have to write it down because you take the chance on somebody finding it. Get a dirty clothes hamper, something that you have worn in the past 3 days that are in the dirty hamper, and take them and get the hell out. She said it takes an average of 7 times for somebody to leave finally. And it's because either they don't find the resources, they don't know, they can't find people to believe them. Support the people that are around you that are trying to leave. If somebody is giving you some type of signal that they need help, help them. because in every aspect of the world, especially with our little segment that we have here with begging, scamming, and bad behavior, there's always going to be enablers. There are even enablers for people who do when they enable the abusers. They always blame the victim, or they blame you for sticking up for yourself, or they say you mouthed off, or you did something to deserve that. Hear us now. You don't deserve to be treated any less than what you are. Your voice needs to be heard. Your face needs to be seen. You are everything, and your life matters. Just because you got out, though, your healing doesn't mean that your body forgets what you went through. Loud noises, unexpected changes, changes in people's tones, being ignored, not knowing when somebody's coming home. It sets off something in you where you're fight or flight. So as you continue to heal, just know that there's resources out there available to you as well. And it is never your fault what you went through. You didn't ask for this. All of you in the chat that told your stories tonight, all of you on this panel that continue to tell your stories through the podcast, through resources and your organizations that you've created. Thank you. Because the most beautiful souls I've seen here tonight are those of you who survived hellfire and brought water back to the women and men who are still going through it. That's a big deal, and that's passion. And I am so proud to be part of each one of you's passion to help people. It's not about tearing anybody down. It's not about accusing, and it's damn sure not about being superior to anybody else. You guys are all amazing, and I'm so happy that you guys accepted me to be part of something like this. And I hope that we continue to bring awareness on different categories that are just as taboo and hard to discuss. And although this was the first of this type here in the awareness community with Checkmate's platform and all of you guys, let's just build off of it. Send your suggestions into each other. I liked that at one point we were brainstorming about doing a podcast where you guys could tell your stories. Write it down. Set that piece of paper on fire with your thoughts and get it out of your mind and your soul because you're released from that. Anything we can do to help you, please allow us to do so. We will get you the resources that you need because there are resources out there. Lastly, I want to remind you guys that as we go through this side of the community with scamming, begging, and those exhibiting bad behavior, there are people out there who will use what you guys have gone through either in mental abuse, sexual abuse, or in physical abuse to get money. The answer will always be resources. There are resources for anything that you can think of that we can find for you. Please don't go in and feel like you need to jump in somebody's box that you feel is being abused in their home and tell them, scream and yell in a box, or tell them to get out, or blame them for being where they are. You aren't the professional. Yes, you are a subject matter expert on what you've gone through, but not what they're going through. You could harm that person by telling them, get out, do this, tell them to go to hell. You have to think about everything, and unfortunately, we can't tell everybody what they're going through in their own personal situations. But you can communicate to each other the best way to help through resources. Once again, the most beautiful souls I've met here tonight are the ones who survived the hell that you've gone through with the hell of fire and bringing water back to the ones that are still in it. Checkmate, I'll let you have your platform back. Thank you so much for what you do for being here for all of us.
Check, I do want to thank you for allowing us to have this on your platform. You didn't have to do that. I appreciate you so much, and I respect you so much for allowing this.
Yes, of course. I really just want to thank everybody that stayed and listened because this is such a tough subject. I mean, people just really don't understand. My mods, you guys are amazing, and everybody up here in the boxes, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Anything you want to say?
Fallon, your research was wonderful.
I just wanted to let everybody know that we do have a live coming up on Wednesday. We're going to talk about Chip Drachenfels. I do believe that's at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, so I hope everybody can join for that. We also have a live coming up where we're going to post receipts about somebody in the awareness community, and that's going to be really important. I think it's important for everybody to understand who they're following. So if there's nothing else, does anybody up here in the boxes have anything they want to say?
Well, I just have one more thing. My inbox is open to anyone that needs help. I will do what I can to get you the help that you can. Sass will as well. If you can't get in contact with me, Birdie Fallon always knows how to. And, you know, you are worth it. You are loved. Your babies are worth it. If you can't do it for yourself, do it for them.
Can I ask you guys to comment in the comments so that we can follow you? She has everybody turned off, so I can't follow people in the boxes unless
You
they
can
comment
follow them.
in the
If you
chat.
see that little plus sign by their name, that's to follow them. I don't have gifts on when I go live, so
I followed you, MAGA girl.
Okay, thank you. I was able to follow Hope, but I wasn't able to follow you guys, so I appreciate that.
And I appreciate you for telling your story. It was, you know, unfortunately, it was heartbreaking, but the great part about it is it had a happy ending.
Yeah, and I appreciate being able to tell my story.
I just wanted to say, well, okay, I probably should have said this earlier, but we have a 24/7 crisis line. It was on the resources paper that's been up here, but we also have a website. And on that website, if you don't feel comfortable calling or something or whatever, or can't, there's also a form that you can fill out and it goes straight to our emails. And then we get to, like, we can see what you say, where, like, how to contact you. And it's, I mean, you can look it up if you want to, if you need it. I do want to preface by saying, like, we don't just, like, we very much hand out resources and we will help you get to where you need to be through those resources, if that makes sense. So we don't, like, we're not just going to hand you like $20 to go get gas to go somewhere. That gets questioned, like, people message us a lot, but that's not what we do. But if you do need help or just someone to talk to about getting out or escaping or anything like that,
is there anything else?
Nope.
Fallon, Rammer, do you guys have anything?
Yes, thank everybody who was here.
Thank you for inviting us.
No, checkmate. I really don't have anything to add because everything that these ladies said is, you know, it's true in fact, and it can be backed up by either their personal stories or their experiences, and that's more powerful than any education you can read on Google on this topic. So these people's experiences hold more water than anything else.
That's right, Rammer.
Amanda, I'm just glad that you were finally able to have this live. I hear there was some difficulties in the past, and I'm just glad you stuck to it and found the right spot.
Yes, I'm one of the lucky ones. I really am. And, you know, that's why I'm so passionate about this. I feel like it's my baby. And I feel like tonight my baby was represented by each and every one of you ladies so well. And I couldn't have asked for anything better. So thank you, ladies.
Absolutely. I'm just glad that we could help you get this out. I know you had a struggle trying to get it out and do a live, so thank you for coming to me. I appreciate it.
Yes.
And trusting me.
Yes, absolutely. And I just thank you for trusting me enough to put this on your platform.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, y'all, we're going to close and look for us. We'll be live soon. I do believe Monday or Tuesday. And then Wednesday we do have the chip live. So we'll see y'all soon. Thanks for stopping in.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.